All right, guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be going over letter 23, which is on the true joy which comes from philosophy. All right, let's jump right into this here. He says here, "Do you suppose that I shall write you how kindly the winter season has dealt with us? A short season and a mild one. Or what a nasty spring we're having, cold weather out of season, and all the other trivialities which people write when they are at a loss for topics of conversation. No, I shall communicate something which may help both you and myself. And what shall this something be, if not an exhortation to soundness of mind? Do you ask what is the foundation of a sound mind? It is not to find joy in useless things. I said that it was the foundation. It is really the pinnacle." All right, so he's saying, I'm not going to come here and small talk you. I'm going to get right down to it. I'm going to give you some valuable advice. It's going to be valuable for you. It's going to be valuable for me. It's going to be valuable for all of us, okay? And he's saying, do you even know what it is that, what is the foundation of a sound mind? Okay, it's not to find joy in useless things, all right? But it's not actually the foundation. He says it's actually the pinnacle. That is the best thing. "We have reached the heights if we know what it is we find joy in, and if we have not pleased our happiness in the control of externals, or not placed our happiness in the control of externals." So we've reached our heights, okay? If we know what we find joy in, okay? If we know what we like, all right? And we haven't put our happiness in the external things, okay? "The man who is goaded ahead by hoping of anything, though be within his reach, though it be ease of access, and though his ambitions have never played him false, is troubled and unsure of himself." Okay? So he's saying, the guy who, is hoping for something, okay? Even though it's in his reach, even though it's easy for him to get, okay? And even though, what he's asked for has never actually, he's never had a problem with it. It's never played him false, his ambitions, okay? He's still troubled and unsure of himself, right? So do you want to be troubled and unsure of yourself? Okay, so you cannot put anything in the control of the externals, right? Because even if you know that you can get it still it makes you troubled, all right? "Above all else, my dear listeners, make this your business. Learn how to feel joy. Do you think that I am now robbing you of many pleasures when I try to do away with gifts of chance, when I counsel the avoidance of hope, the sweetest thing that gladdens our hearts? Quite to the contrary. I do not wish you ever to be deprived of gladness. I would have it born in your house, and it is born there, if only it be inside of you. Other objects of cheer do not fill a man's bosom. They merely smooth his brow and are inconstant, unless perhaps you believe that he who laughs has joy. The very soul must be happy and confident, lifted above every circumstance." Okay, so this is good, right? He's saying here, look, here's the thing, all right? Do you think that I'm robbing you of pleasures because I'm not letting you have joy? I'm telling you not to have joy in the things that are external, the things that are, chance, right? The gifts of chance, okay? Or when I say don't hope, that I'm taking away the sweetest thing that gladdens your hearts? No, it's actually the opposite. I don't want you ever to be, to be sad. You can have joy. You can have it. You can have it if it's inside you. Okay. The other stuff outside, it does not make you happy. Okay. It only makes you content for a moment. It's inconstant. Okay. And unless you believe that a person laughing has joy, right? So if you think that external, that's what it takes to have joy. He's saying the very soul must be happy and confident, lifted above every circumstance. So that's what Stoic philosophy gives you, right? And this is so important, right? If you think about this, right? He's saying, look, you think that it's stuff outside of you that's going to make you happy. I promise you it is not. All right. And stop hoping for things. Even if you hope for something that you can get, the desire for it, the hope for it, the looking for it is still going to make you not be happy. If you want to be happy, there's only one sure way to do it, and it is to just choose to be happy within yourself and to be happy with what you have. Right. Real joy, believe me, is a stern matter. Can one, do you think, despise death with a carefree countenance or with a blithe and gay expression, as our young dandies are accustomed to say? Or can one thus open his door to poverty, or hold the curb on his pleasures, or contemplate the endurance of pain? He who ponders these things in his heart is indeed full of joy, but is not a cheerful joy. It is just this joy, however, of which I would have you become the owner, for it will never fail you once you have found its source. All right, so let's break this down. All right, what is he saying here? He's saying, look, real joy It's a serious thing. All right. So do you think, okay, that someone can basically face death with a carefree, without a care? Like, can they despise death? Or with a blithe and gay expression, right? Can they be happy about it? Or can someone open their door to poverty, or put a curb on their pleasures, or even endure pain or contemplate that? He says, he who ponders these things in his heart is full of joy. So if you think about these things, right, what are the things? If you think about, how could I face death with a carefree smile, right? How could I not fear death anymore, right? What if how could I just open my door to poverty, allowed poverty, like didn't worry about that, right? If I practiced poverty, right? If I curbed my pleasures, so I wasn't addicted to those things, right? Or, what if I thought about enduring pain and thought my way through that, right? So this is what he's saying. He's saying, if you think about these things, and this is very true, if you think about all these things, then you're going to become more accustomed to them. And yeah, it's not like this cheerful joy, but it's this joy that it will never fail you, because you know that you can always depend on that, right? It's sort of this joy of not having the fear, right? The yield of poor minds is on the surface. Those are really rich whose veins lurk deep, and they will make more bountiful returns to him who delves unceasingly. So too, those baubles which delight the common crowd but afford a thin pleasure, laid on as a coating, and every joy that is only plated lacks a real basis. But the joy of which I speak, that which I am endeavoring to lead you, is something solid disclosing itself the more fully as you penetrate into it. So he's saying that, look, if you're looking for shallow pleasures in life, you'll find them. But, the real deep pleasures, the real deep veins of joy and happiness, those run deep. But if you find them, if you're willing to do the work, it's much better. You get much more, right? And he's saying, these baubles, these little toys, these painted toys that they have, it's just a coating. Okay, if you were to peel that back, there'd be nothing under there. All right, but he's saying that that any kind of joy like that's only plated, right? Just these external things, they're like that. But if the real joy that he's talking about, it's something that it becomes more pure as you penetrate into it, as you see more into it, experience more of it. Therefore, I pray you, my dear Lucilius, do the one thing that can render you really happy. Cast aside and trample underfoot all those things that glitter outwardly and are held out to you by another, or as obtainable from another. Look toward the true good and rejoice only in that which comes from your own store. And what do I mean by from your own store? I mean from your very self, that which is the best part of you. The frail body also, even though we can accomplish nothing without it, is to be regarded as necessary rather than important. It involves us in vain pleasures, short-lived and soon to be regretted, which, unless they are reined in by extreme self-control, will be transformed into the opposite. This is what I mean. Pleasure, unless it has been kept within bounds, tends to rush headlong into the abyss of sorrow. All right, so there's a lot of stuff that he's saying here, but this is probably the most critical part of this letter, so we'll break it down. All right, so he's saying here, look, all right, do this one thing that can make you really happy. He's saying get rid of all the things that glitter outwardly, all the outward things that you like, okay, that are held out to you by another or attainable for another. So anything that you have to get from outside of you, from someone else, get rid of it. Don't want it anymore, okay? Instead, look towards the true good, okay, and only be happy about what comes from you. And he says, what do I mean by this? I mean your very self, which is the best part of you. Not even your body, okay? Because the body, here's what happens with the body, is even though it's necessary, okay, it's not important, okay? Because it gets you into trouble. In vain pleasures that are short-lived, okay? And then unless they're reined in by extreme self-control, once you start getting addicted to these pleasures, they transform into pain, into sorrow, right? Because he says, this is what I mean. Pleasure, unless it has been kept within bounds, tends to rush headlong into the abyss of sorrow, right? How many times have you done something that maybe you shouldn't have been doing, and you liked it and you enjoyed it, and then you regretted it later? That's what this means. It means that, or has it gotten you into big trouble, or has it messed up your life in some way? This is what he's talking about here, okay? But it is hard to keep within bounds that which you believe to be good. The real good may be coveted with safety, okay? So yeah, when you think something's good, it's hard to actually put a limit on that, right? Why would you? It's the more the merrier, right? Do you ask me what this real good is and whence it derives? I will tell you. It comes from a good conscience, from honorable purposes, from right actions, from contempt of the gifts of chance, and from an even and calm way of living which treads but one path. All right, so let's just break that part down real quick, okay? So what is actually good, okay? It's good conscience, honorable purposes, doing the right things, okay? And then not wanting gifts of chance, not wanting things that are external, okay? From an even and calm way of living. And so, being constant, right? In one path, one direction that you're going. For men who leap from one purpose to another, or do not even leap, but are carried over by a sort of hazard, how can such wavering and unstable persons possess any good that is fixed and lasting? So these unstable people, okay, that just go from one thing to another, right? How can that person possess any good that's fixed and lasting? Because they're always changing. So he's saying stick to the one thing. Figure out something and stick to that thing. Don't just keep on changing over and doing different things and having, being an unstable person. Be constant, be steady. And if you're a man of principles, that should be no problem, because you'll be following principles. There are only a few who control themselves and their affairs by guiding purpose. The rest do not proceed. They're merely swept along, like objects afloat in a river. And of these objects, some are held back by sluggish waters and are transported gently. Others are torn along by a more violent current. Some, which are nearest the bank, are left there as the current slackens, and others are carried out to sea by the onrush of the stream. Therefore, we should decide what we wish and abide by the decision. So he's saying there's very few people who are actually able to control themselves, okay? And most people, they don't have any purpose. They're just being swept along like in a river, okay? And some of them are held back by some water, some are going over here, some are going there. Like all these different things happen, all right? And so he's saying you need to figure out what you want and then just stick to it, which is really important, because we tend to switch, and want to do something else, and we don't see things through to completion. So, but if we don't do that, then we're just being like a pinball in a pinball machine. We're like being swept down a river. Now it's time for me to pay my debt, and I can give you the saying of your friend Epicurus, and thus clear this letter of its obligation. It is bothersome always to be beginning life. Or another, which will perhaps express the meaning better, quote, they live ill who are always beginning to live. All right, we'll move on here. In verse 10, he says, you're right in asking why. The saying certainly stands in need of a commentary. It is because the life of such persons is always incomplete. But a man cannot stand prepared for the approach of death if he has just begun to live. We must make it our aim already to have lived long enough. No one deems that he has done so, if he is just on the point of planning his life. So you gotta not be planning your life later on. You gotta figure out your plan and do it now, right? And that's what he's saying. He's saying that everyone's just starting over. It's always bothersome to be beginning life, right? They live ill who are always beginning to live, right? Now I'm really going to live. Now, once I get this job, once I get this thing, once I get this thing, that's what people think, is they keep on saying, when I get this thing, then I'll really live my life. That's, that's what he's really saying here. Okay. So he's saying that, man cannot stand prepared for the approach of death if he's just begun to live. If you have to have already felt like you've lived long enough. So you have to have already done the things that you planned on doing. Okay. So just start doing them, right? This was the theme of the last letter. In verse 11, he says, you need not think that there are few of this kind. Practically everyone is of such stamp. Some men indeed only begin to live when it is time for them to leave of living. And if this seems surprising to you, I shall add that which will surprise you still more. Some men have left off living before they have begun. So he's saying that a lot of people, it's a majority of people, okay? And some people, they only really start to live when they're basically at the end of their life, because maybe they have some kind of terminal diagnosis and now they're going to live their life, right? Or they're old and now they're retiring, and so they waited to live their life until they could retire, and now they're old. So it doesn't make sense to waste so much time. You could be living your life now. You have to consider that you're living your life now. And he says that, and some men die before they've even begun. They haven't even started. Some person could be saving up for retirement, and then I'm going to finally live my life, and then they get hit by a car, or they die of a heart attack, and they don't actually get to do that. So the point of this is that you have to live your life now. And if you're waiting for something in the future, if you have that hope that he's so against, right, then you're not going to be living your life now. You got to get rid of all of those external desires as much as possible, not want the things that, it doesn't mean you can't have good things that are outside of you, but it means that you can't depend on them. You can't want them, right? You have to basically consider them as neither good nor bad, right? That's, as soon as you start wanting that thing, as soon as you start being attached to the thing, as soon as you won't let something go, as soon as you're trying to avoid something, then now you're not going to be happy. Now you are going to be a person who's not living their life, right? Who's not living their life now. All right. We'll see you tomorrow.